Welcome along to the last webinar of the 2021-22 series from the Future of Marketing. As the academic year ends, we thought it was a good idea to have a chat about learning on the job today. So we've got two guests with us this evening. We've got Lizandra Holanda, who is Marketing Manager with CDE in Cookstown. And we have Colleen O'Donnell, who is the founder of Marque Digital Marketing. So thanks very much for coming along, ladies. It's very nice to see you here. I'm looking forward to the chat. We've got plenty to get through based on the conversation that we had last week.
Just a little bit.
So Lizandra, can we kick off, and just for our viewers, can you give us, introduce yourself to us, explain what your role is with CDE and what the business does, the team you work as part of?
Sure. First, hello everyone. Really nice to be here. Thanks for having me, Peter. So I'm Lizandra. I work as a marketing manager at CDE. So as Peter just mentioned, CDE is based out of Cookstown. It's a global engineering company. So we provide machinery for advanced wet processing technologies for the quarrying, recycling, and mining industries. So we operate across some strategic regions, and including the Americas. So I'm a marketing manager overseeing the activities in the Americas. So it's a bit of everything, actually. I help to oversee and manage events, content for the website, relationship with customers, relationship with agents, as well as journalists and everything. Just trying each day just to create more content and make sure that that region develops, and trying to focus on different areas as well as the market needs. So yeah, overseeing the Americas.
Okay, thanks, Lizandra. Colleen, if we could move on to you then, if you could tell us a little bit about what Marque Digital Marketing is, what you do, and when did you decide to start your own business?
Yes, so I'm Colleen O'Donnell, and I'm the founder of Marque Digital Marketing, which is a marketing agency focused on content and digital learning. And yeah, it all came about. We've been established over 4 years now, and we've done a rebrand in the last year to have that focus on our content and digital learning. Probably the journey, as we're going to speak about now, has always going to made me come to this point and lead me here. And as Lizandra said, there's a whole list of stuff that we do, which we'll definitely get into in more detail.
Okay. Lizandra, if we go back to your time at university in Brazil, can you give us tell us a little bit about the degree that it was that you studied for there, and then, which will make sense in a few seconds when you tell us that, how you ended up working in marketing then?
Okay, so I'm actually from Brazil, and my degree was in economics, so economics with a little bit of business as well. And at the time, I actually had an internship as a marketing manager. So even though I wasn't studying marketing directly, I was involved with it a little bit, and I've always loved communications and promotional things and engagement with people. So when I was finishing my economics degree, I wanted to try and do something different. So I tried to find like an internship abroad at the time, because being from Brazil, of course, you're not exposed to many different languages. So I want to develop my English, develop my personal and professional skills. And I ended up finding this opportunity to do a placement abroad. And decided to go for it, even though it wasn't specific for economics. At the time, the skills and the requirements for that placement matched with my profile. But yes, so I would say the economics was a big foundation for my career today.
Okay. I mean, you moved from Brazil to Northern Ireland to take up the job with CDE. I remember interviewing you, actually.
Peter was my boy.
Was that on Skype? I mean, who uses Skype anymore? Skype was so 2012, wasn't it? You moved. It was a big move. I mean, I remember actually, because we were connected on Facebook after we'd offered you the job and before you arrived. And I remember seeing a post when you arrived in Cookstown that said "New city, new life," and I thought, oh, you're in for a bit of a surprise. If you'd come from Bellow, which is, I mean, how many? It was 1.5 million people.
Oh my gosh,
in
now
Bellow
it's
or
probably
something like
3 million people in Bellow.
And you're to Cookstown, and I still remember seeing that post on Facebook and smiling and thinking there's going to be a bit of a surprise. People will see that as a big brave move, particularly coming to a role that fell outside of what your degree qualification was.
Yes.
Can you tell us about what it was that drove you to want to do that?
Yeah. So as I was saying, doing my degree in Brazilian economics, I did have a few placements there, and I was content, I was happy in work there, but I've always, since I joined the uni, I had a dream of doing something abroad, and especially English. I was passionate with English, and since I was a teenager. And whenever I applied for this program, at first you cannot see the position straight away, and then whenever they open, which is usually like early in a specific year, you can see what's open, which countries, what's the opportunity, and all of that. And I remember seeing there were positions from economics, but I saw this one for marketing, and it said Cookstown, Northern Ireland. I had a quick check because I didn't know Cookstown before, but I was like, I was amazed how the opportunity of like an extra description had a possibility to perhaps work in Brazil after. And at the time, because my long-term plans were not actually, like I had the plan of staying a year, I saw that it was like
How long
very...
ago was that? Was 8 years ago?
Almost 8 years. Yeah, things change. But anyways, I remember seeing that job, and I checked a bit, of course, learned a bit more about CDE, and I just felt like so interested. They wanted someone to do marketing to help to develop the business in Latin America to start with. So when I saw that opportunity and everything they were asking, even though I was coming from a different degree, I felt I would fulfill the requirements, and I just decided to go for it. And yes, it is a big change. It's a big move. I had never been in Northern Ireland before. I was 23 at the time. So I would say, even for everyone there, like watching us now, some things will scare you. It's something out of your comfort zone. But I just had such a great opportunity that if I was afraid, if I hadn't gone for it, I would haven't lived so many good experience, and I just loved the job. So whenever I started, I felt like, you know what, I think my career is actually going to be marketing. I really could see myself and enjoy what I was doing. So that's the story. It wasn't totally planned to be marketing, to be Cookstown, Northern Ireland. Things just happened, and here I am.
Okay. Colleen, can you take us a walk through then the earlier part of your career journey then before you founded Marque? Tell us what degree you did and what the first few roles that you had after.
Yeah, so mine was a wee bit different from Lizandra. I kind of always knew quite early on that marketing was kind of going to be my road, and I undertook the Communication Advertising course at Jordanstown, CAM, which is well known for its understanding of the foundations of marketing, but also to give you that extra edge. And that degree really just set me on the right path to knowing that marketing was for me. So it was very quickly I realised the course was great theoretically, but there was no experience, so there wasn't. So in second year it was kind of the pressure of getting placement and the pressure of having experience to apply for your experience was very difficult. So I actually had to undertake a free internship with Colleen Park in Belfast every Friday evening, just to kind of give me that feeling of like, what's it actually like to work in this marketing environment before I went to placement. And because I had done that, because I had realised that experience was so essential when I went to apply for my placements, that was the thing that actually they said, you've already got experience. And I was like, yeah, it's only a free internship, but that was the thing that made them give me the job over somebody else, because they seen that I was interested in the role.
Okay. I mean, you've been self-employed now for over 4 years. Was that something that was always on the agenda? Was it something that you always saw yourself doing, or was it just a decision that came after a bit of experience?
Yeah, no, as I said before, it was where the journey was taking me to, but I was very conscious when I was leaving university that it was important to go out and just see the world and get that experience, and more importantly that corporate experience. And that's why my first job out of university was with Intel, because I was very conscious that that corporate lifestyle and the corporate role you get just gives you that foundation when you first get in.
We'll come on, this is a great story. You have to tell about the Intel thing actually, and we'll come on to that a bit later. So going back to your experience then, Lizandra, as you mentioned earlier, you're from Brazil, but you worked for a time in Mexico before you came to Northern Ireland. What do you think you got out of that experience of the role you had in Mexico, and do you think, I suppose it's potentially hard to answer this question because you don't have a parallel universe where you didn't do it, but do you think, can you tell us something about the value that you've got from that experience of going and experiencing different cultures and different ways of doing business and different customers and different business types, and how that's helped as your career has develop?
Yes, definitely. So just before I came to Northern Ireland, I went to Mexico. So actually Mexico was the first country I was like visiting outside of Brazil, and at the time I was like 22. So I actually went on a volunteer experience. So I want to do something different, want to do something again, something abroad. And I went to Mexico. I was teaching Portuguese there for some employees that they had to do business with Brazil, so they needed to know Portuguese. But I ended up, I really liked the country, and it was that mix of information, everything new. Spanish, I didn't speak Spanish very well at the time, meeting people from all over the place, because I ended up having friends not only from Mexico, there were people there visiting and working from Europe, from Australia, from Africa. So for the first time, I was totally out of my comfort zone, working and dealing with people that I had never seen before, people raised in very different ways. And there was a big wake up that, like, of course, Brazil is huge. Most of my life I was there, but I was like, okay, there's so much more out there. And when I was talking to people from all those different countries, like I had a very good friend from Morocco, a good friend from Poland, places that I didn't know much about them. And this all helped. And then eventually I came across this company. Again, it was like an engineering company. They were expanding their business to Central America, and they needed someone to help with that because eventually they wanted to expand to Brazil. And I went for an interview. It wasn't my plan to get a permanent job there, but I went for the interview. They liked me. I got the job. Was there for a few months because I was already sort of like applying for this job here, so I knew it would be just temporary. And I ended up being a business development executive for them. And again, working with a lot of people from Mexico. My line manager was French, so you can imagine like the mix of going to a Mexican company, working with a lot of Mexican people, but my line manager being French. So I remember like being 22 and thinking, I never thought that I would be working like that, just because it's things you don't think about and they happen and you just take that opportunity. And again, that was my first experience working with people from different cultures. So I think that helped a lot, even with my interview for the job here. And when I arrived here, I was already used to working with people from different backgrounds. So I'd say resilience and learning to like be professional and all of that was huge.
Okay. Colleen, we spoke when we met last week about you also moved away from home, albeit not quite as far as the Brazil to Cookstown thing. But I don't think the distance necessarily matters in terms of the experience it gives you. So can you tell us a little bit about how that communications and marketing internship with Intel came about?
Yeah, so as I said, I was very conscious, and even the feeling of pressure after we had just finished university to get ourselves jobs straight after, and I was one that definitely felt that pressure. So when I was looking for the roles, I seen this Intel Shannon. I can see it as clear as day. There, and it ticked a lot of boxes. It ticked the corporate job. The advice I always give to people is go to those Intels and such, because it looks great on your CV when you're planning for your next job.
Was that the main motivation for Intel for you? Was it the impression it would give to future employers, if you like, on your CV?
It wasn't 100% conscious at the time. It was a part of it. It was definitely a part of that going to the corporate world. But now looking back, I think I recommend that to other people. Go to your big companies, because when you're planning for your next job, it does look good, but what that box ticked there for me was the Intel. It was away from home, so it was giving me both that professional and personal experience. But
and was that again back to similarly to Lisandra's? Was that just this desire to put yourself in an uncomfortable position and see what it taught you?
Yeah. So like, one of the things I always say to anybody that's coming out of university is be conscious of these things, because I think both of us were very unconscious of them, and we kind of just wanted to take a couple of risks when we were in our early 20s, because that was the time to do it. And if we'd given more guidance, we probably would have done them more consciously. But I took that interview down in Shannon, which was a 4-hour drive away to take, knowing I might not get it, but I thought I might as well try. The interview went really well. The degree definitely stood for me, and the experience that I had got at such a young age as well. And at the end of the interview, they looked at me and went, okay, that's all good, but do you live here? Or, because obviously my address was on my CV, and I said, no, I drove 4 hours to get this interview. And they just looked at me, and I thought, that's either really helped or not. And then the next question was, well, are you willing to relocate? And I went, yeah. And
the answer's always yes.
The answer's always yes. You figure it out. But for that one, it was yes. And within the hour of I left thinking that's either went really well or there's it's not happening. And within the hour of leaving, they rang me and said, the job's yours.
Okay.
And I was like, great. And I did start.
See, this is interesting for me because I mean, it was through the IASTI program from the British Council that you interviewed for the job with CDE, and we'd had experience using that program for our engineers previously. And I remember talking to the engineering manager after he'd had a couple of runs at it, and he said the thing about it is you're recruiting people who are deliberately putting themselves in uncomfortable positions. So they are keen to learn new things. They're fine with risk to a certain degree, and there's a willingness to just try and develop themselves and not just stay comfortable. And it was at that point, I think, that other departments in CDE said this might be actually worth looking at beyond the engineering department then. So we looked at it, and I think there is something about, you know, people who are willing to do what you did and what you did with the program. From I know from an employer's perspective, as we were hiring at the time, you know, when you're looking at CVs and you're talking to people, that's the sort of thing that, you know, a first class honours or a 2-1 in a degree isn't going to tell you that whether somebody has that or not. That willingness to get up and go is really important part of it. There's another story you have about the Intel one, Colleen, if you could tell us a little bit about
really
that.
straight.
Right, so you'd been in the role for a while, and one of the managers told you about one of the main reasons that you'd got the job. Can you tell us a wee bit more about that?
With Intel
job.
So I got the role. I started quite quickly, so I did, and I was curious to know why me, and I did ask, and they were just like, the effort that you put into the drive and, you know, the commute and the fact that you're willing to relocate. You know, we'd interviewed so many people that day with the same qualifications and similar experience, but, you know, when you walked out that door, you just left that impression. And that's what I always say to anybody that's kind of looking for jobs or a graduate is there's just one simple small thing that you can make different about yourself, and then on top of that, make sure you communicate that across the table. It's really important.
Don't assume that people will
that they know.
No, I didn't say adding to you there, Peter, and maybe an advice for everyone there just graduating. Though I think don't be afraid to take a bit of time. Sometimes I see a lot of young people looking for a job in their city or in their town straight away because they think they have to say out. I think an advice, if you're 22, 20, even 25 or whatever, you're so young. So don't be afraid to do something out there. It doesn't have to be abroad. It can be in a different place because you have a whole life ahead of you. Like, not that I'm that old either, but I just think you still can do so much. So I think when you leave uni or even before that, high school, just take a bit of time, try to do something different, because I think that's the age as well, in the time you end up discovering something new and just putting yourself out there. And similar to my experience, I knew everything in Brazil. I was comfortable. I was at home. I was with my parents. But you end up meeting so many different people, getting so many different experiences that if you don't take that initial big step and risk it, you don't get it. You don't live it.
So there is that pressure to feel like you have to take the first job that you're offered when you leave university. And
absolutely. You know, and I think there's something in. I do a bit of work with Young Enterprise, and obviously this session we get to talk to quite a lot of marketing students as well. And I think that there's too much pressure put on students and sometimes that they have to have it all. They have to have it all planned out. You know, they have to have it all figured out about what the 5-year plan is and what the 10-year plan is and what the exit strategy is. And it's like, you actually don't. You just need to follow your nose a little bit and do what feels right at the time. And know that there's no such thing as a fatal decision. Very rarely is there any as a decision that's going to have a lasting bad impact. Worst case scenario, something goes wrong, you learn something from it, and you realize what you don't want to do quite quickly. So I do think there's something in telling people that,
there's
you know,
always
just
options. Like, you can go for something. Again, don't be afraid. I kept saying to my friends whenever I moved here, it's not like a prison. If I didn't like or if something happened, you can always
go home.
You can always do something else. So,
going on to your early career then, Lizandra. So if we can start that at that time in 2014 when you started with CDE, the company was growing very, very fast. It was a pretty steep learning curve for somebody coming in, you know, trying to to work in a new culture, in a new environment, in a company that's growing quickly, speaking a language, it's a version of English. But to somebody coming from Brazil, I'm sure there were times in those early days where there were conversations that you were thinking, I have no idea what's going on here.
I know.
What was it about the culture of the company and the team you were part of that made that a process that you were able to stick with?
Yeah. So as Peter just said, I was like there was another Brazilian person working at the time, but I was like the only one in marketing anyways. And again, first thing, language, I spoke English, but of course, because it was never my daily, day-to-day language in Brazil, there was a lot of things that I wouldn't get. I remember like some of the first lunch, like in the canteen, and all people were talking. They would look at me, they're like, "You're not getting this." I was like, "No, sorry." And then what I really liked, people were one thing I really remember, people were so welcoming and so friendly. At the time, as like CDE was growing so fast, so at the time we were just like over 100 employees. I think like 120 employees, and everyone knew me. I got to know most people, work with different people, and again, they always like willing to help me to develop. And even my Peter at the time, my colleagues in marketing, they were patient with me. They knew I was like younger, I didn't have a lot of experience, I was from different country, but I think that culture of everyone really working towards the same goal, which was like develop themselves and help to develop the company. Everyone there, it felt like CDE felt that like almost was like my own company. And I think everyone at the time was that same feeling of like, I'm going to help the business to develop and do what they could, and everyone towards the same goal. So I think it was a nice moment to start coming from a different place, because some people just discovering some new things. There was people traveling for business to places they had never been before. I remember like people going to the Middle East, to Asia, to places, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so different. And so I just realized that everyone, even though they could be there for longer or had more experience in work that I had, people are also finding new experience and just figuring out how to do some things. And but one thing in common, I think everyone had, was just that that desire of like make it happen together, and make CDE succeed. And I would say today, after this almost 8 years, we're now like over 500 employees, global company. We have like projects in like many countries. So it was nice to be able to be there from, as I said, not that I knew I was going to be there long term, but looking back today was quite nice to see that.
Again, the sort of work that you do with CDE is quite interesting, because in a world where digital seems to dominate most marketing conversations, your role's maybe a little bit different than people would expect. So can you tell us about some of the day-to-day activities that you're involved with in your role at CDE, and even in the early days, and if that's changed or evolved since then?
Yeah, so I would say, again, as probably everyone would agree, huge difference. So from when I started, I was involved with a lot of digital marketing as well at the time, which was like we had a previous website, we did some like newsletters and all of that, but it was nowhere near close as we have now, how important is digital marketing. But anyways, with CDE, we have customers and audiences of different types. So for us now, we still have a very traditional market, but we also have people that are all engaged, all online. So we try to just find the right way to communicate to the right audience. So I remember very early in the career organizing a lot of events, physical events, a lot of advertising for print magazines, a lot of partnerships with associations, and that's something I still do. But today, our presence online grew a lot. We have a new website. Another thing I think was great. So first year of the pandemic, of course, we had to cancel all physical events. Nothing was happening. And then as a marketing team, we thought, okay, what can we do? Something different. And then we came up with this global virtual event, which was huge at the time. We had speakers from all over the world, including customers and partners and all of that. And it was a huge project. I keep saying that was almost as preparing for a trade show, because we had to manage sessions throughout 3 days, different time zones, and it was like panels as well. So some sessions, we had more than one speaker, and it was huge. And then from that, we just realized, the online presence will always be evolving, and we have to keep it up. And so today I would say another thing I've noticed, content being every time we can. Now we try to be sharing things online and new videos, pictures. People, sometimes we post some pictures like a team or a new product, and we get so much engagement. So it's clear that people are more online, but again, we still have a market that likes to read magazines, that they like to go to an association event. So we try to find the right strategy to just go and communicate with different people.
Okay, great. So moving on to your experience after Intel then, Colleen, can you tell us a little bit about the journey you made to the interview? And the response from your employer when they found out about that journey?
Yeah, so we were talking earlier about like the pressure that graduates face when they're having to leave and get the job, and I did feel that pressure. So when I left Intel after a year, we went off and we travelled, did some travelling, but off travelling I forgot that I had applied for this job back at home. Got this phone call, they were trying to phone me, eventually found a phone in Asia to ring them, see what it was about, and long story short, the only time the interview that they could interview me was hours after I had landed back in Dublin. So I thought, I'll take it. So found the only Tesco's I could find in Thailand somewhere, got a pen and a notepad, screenshotted like interview questions about the company, because we were sitting on an overnight train with no internet for the next day or night, and just prepped the whole way home. Got back into Dublin that night and turned pretty much a few hours later to go back to Dublin for the interview. I was that jet lagged or tired or whatever it may be that I wrote stuff on the back of my hand to remind myself in case I forgot when I went into the interview. Anybody listening to go into an interview, do not write anything on the back of your hand, because you're not going to see it. You don't have time to read it, and you sweat that much, you're not going to see it anyway, but the interview seeing it. So that was fine. Went through the interview. They were very impressed again with the course, with my experience so far. And again, at the end of the interview, they just looked at me and went, "Where were you yesterday?" And I was like, "Asia." And they went, "Okay, that's all right." And they'd already asked the relocation question, and I had let them know that I was fine with relocating too. And that was all fine, got the job. And again, I would recommend ask why you got the job to see what your strength is. And I asked why did I got the job in a very casual setting one day at work, and he went, "Well, if anybody that I interview, which I've interviewed a lot of people and they have never done this, write stuff on their back of their hand, and then at the end of the interview tells me they're in Asia yesterday, I can't not give them the job." So, and then obviously I explained to him in more depth what had really went on for me to get to be sitting in front of him that day, and he looked at me and went, "Good job, I give you the job then." And I went, "Yeah, there was a lot of work that went into it." So again, that interview would have just been a normal interview if they hadn't have known where I was 12 hours before the interview, and communicating that across the table to them. And even if you think this is going to go really right, or that's me out of here, you do need to communicate that. And it is just that one thing that makes you stand out from the rest, because they say when I left the interview room, they just went, "What did she say?" Because nobody else was saying they're in Asia the day before their interview. And he said, "You were really prepared for that." And they're like, "How did you do that?" And I obviously explained the story of why. So that's why I'm always saying to anybody that's going for an interview or leaving university, you don't have to walk out of university and go straight into a job. That traveling piece could be the reason you get the job, or just give you that space to think. And as I said, like you don't have to go for the first job, and the first job might not be right. And, it's just about developing. So, but that job was.
Okay, that job, that was with ENET, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then you told us about a big project that they landed while you were working there. Can you tell us a little bit about what that project was, and what sort of learning experience that was for you as well?
Yeah, so like that was just the start of the excitement, because when I applied for the job, it was a marketing role, very generic, which I liked, because I was looking for something that kind of was going to allow me to do a wee bit of everything, to kind of start understanding what was it I really liked about this, to maybe niche down. And when I got into the job, it was your website development and updating your content creation, attending events. But what ENET was a telecom business, and when I arrived at the job, within a couple of months, they were tendering for one of the largest government projects done ever since the electrification of Ireland. So it was giving broadband to every home in Ireland. Also, working on the marketing team of that project and not being from Ireland gave me a perspective totally different to everybody else. And I'd not worked in telecoms as well. So starting off in the job, I was just doing the day-to-day stuff and things that I was in my job role. But I could quickly see that there was this other part of the marketing that was happening. And I asked, what's going on? Can I do something? Are you going somewhere? And I started to ask for extra things to do. And I was given them, and I was...
You'll find that.
It's as simple as that. People are like, how do I do more in a company? Just ask. And I wasn't very good at it in the start, but I had a good manager, and he could see the potential with a wee bit of guidance. And it got to the point where they were just handing me stuff then, because they knew if I didn't get it on the first go, I'd eventually get it, because I wanted it to succeed. And due to that learning curve turned out to be writing blogs for the CEO of the company, attending events, tweeting live at the event, going to meetings with advertising agencies that we were hiring, getting to see the best agencies in Dublin, things that I had never expected to get out of the job. And all that came from was showing a wee bit of enthusiasm, being okay with not getting it right the first couple of times. And then I was able to get relocated into the Marion Square offices, which just even gave the job role a whole different dynamic. Things were moving fast daily, and then I got to be quite close to the CEO and the shareholders and everybody involved. So I did. So, and as I said, like, because I wasn't from there and I had no telecoms, every time I would question anything, they would look at me and go, why didn't we think of that? So sometimes when people go into a job, they think, oh, I'm not like them. That's actually a good thing. Because you're looking at it from a totally different perspective. And I remember even just saying to the engineers one day, you know, so we're doing it like that. Would you not just do this? And this was an engineering topic that I obviously had no knowledge on. He went, never thought about that. And this was a senior guy, 30 years, doing what he done.
Different perspective.
So it was. So just being in that world, and everybody was like 40 plus, and they're all wearing black suits. So it just was somewhere that when they say, you know, go get your experience and just be not the smartest person in the room, that's where I ended up, just because I asked.
Okay. Going on to what you said there about things moving so fast, I mean, one of the huge challenges, and it's not just marketing, I think across any jobs at the minute, is the speed of change, particularly with technology, makes it extremely hard to keep up, and there's absolutely no chance that you can do a degree now and that's your learning finished and then just go and work. So that process of ongoing learning has to be supported and facilitated across the whole career. I'd like to spend a wee bit of time now talking about that. So Lizandra, if we can start with you. When you came to the marketing role in CDE, as you've talked about, with your economics degree and some placement experience and a little bit of work experience in a marketing role, but can you tell us about any of the formal training that you've done since then?
Yes.
And what do you think the value that it's added for you has been?
Yeah, so as I said, when I arrived, even though first year was about doing things that I hadn't done before, actually one thing I want to mention, and if you remember that open house, we have some demonstration events at customer sites, and I remember organizing one after 3 months I had started, and again, something I had never done.
Which one was that one?
The one in Brazil.
Oh, yes.
Remember that? Yes. So again, it's still like something totally new. I just loved to do that, and eventually when I came back, I think after the first year, we had the chance to do a course for digital marketing. So I think I have had by then probably 1 year of experience and just really learning different things. I was working, the very good thing I think was just all my career, I was able to be involved in everything related to marketing. So I think my process from being a placement to being a marketing manager, today I'm able to oversee things and understand a bit of everything because I was involved with them. But of course, the courses do add a lot. And the first one I did was a digital marketing one, Diploma in digital marketing. And at the time, again, something I hadn't done before that really helped me to understand more the digital marketing world, and help. At the time, I was like managing the social media, helping to just create content for the website, SEO, and all the actual strategies. So something that really helped just complement my degree and my working experience. And then more down the line, recently, about 2 years ago, I became a member, probably 3 years ago, I think, with CIM. And again, they are just amazing. They offer a lot of benefits for members and all. And with CDE, they really invest in like learning and development. So I saw this opportunity. It was like a diploma in professional marketing, level 6. And then at the time I spoke with my line manager, and I just showed interest that I want to do that. And again, I was appointing my career. A few years later, I was a marketing executive, transitioning to be a marketing manager. And I actually think it was the right time to do the course. And because it was level 6 as well, I was different. I had a few years of experience with me then, and I could just learn a lot of new things, a bit more broad than just a day-to-day job. So that really helped me to be a proper manager, planning, seeing the scenario, setting up clear goals, understanding the objectives, understanding what you need to do to achieve them. So not only, okay, I'm going to arrive, I have to work on this and this and this, but more what am I doing? And if I have to set targets and all of that. So the strategic planning. So I remember my modules were actually managing brands, innovation in marketing, and strategic marketing. So again, that was great. And the innovation one was so useful for this past 2 years as well of the pandemic, that we had to be very creative in a time that for a good few months, or even more, all working from home. So I think those qualifications added up to my degree a lot. And because I already had the working experience, it was just a perfect combo. So I would say, don't let a different degree put you off. Of course, I keep saying to people, I didn't come from a totally different degree. I did have a marketing experience at uni. Economics is a lot of business as well, which is you have to have that mindset to do marketing. So I think, but as you can, especially for a transition, or even though if you had your marketing degree, try to seek for course that you can do to complement, because just helps to just...
How important do you think it is for your employer to support your involvement with those professional membership bodies, whether it's a marketing one or a finance one or a personnel one or a purchasing one, in terms of sort of making you take those opportunities to go and keep learning?
I think that's amazing, and that's something even an advice for everyone out there. Usually wouldn't maybe ask this in an interview, but it's probably good to see the companies you're applying. What do they do? Do they invest in people? Are they helping people to actually succeed and to learn more? And CDE actually has this very well designed where most people that want to do something, if it's relevant, if it's the right thing to do, they'll be supported. So with CIM, I have the support for my membership. I got the support for the course as well. And I think it's a way that the company recognize your value and also is investing in you. And then at the end of the day, you're able as well, if you need to work a little bit of your work time to study or to take a test or to go to the classes. And then as a result, you implement that on your day-to-day job and just increase your personal skills. So definitely you don't realize the importance and sometimes the costs of those as well.
I remember going to a CBI event in the Sleeve Donard a number of years ago, and it was a presentation on it was a HR and personnel development thing, and we were talking about the CDE thing because we were recruiting quite heavily at the time. And one of the guys in the audience asked the question of the panel afterwards and said, what happens if you train all these people and then they leave?
What happens if you don't and they stay?
Yeah, that was the best answer I've ever heard. It was,
it
was one of the HR directors for one of the big food companies locally said, I'll give you a worse scenario.
Because it is a situation where the employee is in charge now. So anybody that's even considering thinking about leaving their job at the minute, when they go out to apply for those jobs, you can nearly turn the interview into you're interviewing them now.
Oh, you have to.
So you do, and that was something that wasn't...
I wish I knew that when I was younger, to be honest, because I didn't do it. But you don't realise that this is a two-way interview here. I have to find out whether this is the right place for me as much as you have to find out whether you
and that's something I wish we had been taught back at university, to flip that completely, because that would actually stop you from taking the first job that you're offered, and to see if actually does it have that growth that you're looking for.
And I think at the end of the day, it's a big motivation for an employee as well. If you think, okay, so I'm actually I don't have to, for example, have an added expense to pay this course. My company is doing that for me. I think that's a big plus. As a huge benefit to having a company. And then at that cycle, okay, so now I'm motivated to stay more, I'm motivated to learn and implement that. So I think employers doing the right thing, invest and learn, they have nothing to lose. On the other hand, I think it's just something that's going to pay off. So,
okay, I mean, Colleen, from your perspective, I suppose being self-employed needs a bit of a different approach when it comes to staying up, and very often you end up so focused on client work and the project work that You can neglect your own personal development sometimes. Can you tell us about how you approach that and how you make sure that you're staying up to date with all the latest goings on and what you need to keep abreast of?
Yeah, as we already spoke about, like marketing and digital marketing is just changing rapidly. It's actually every time you switch the computer on, there's a new update, there's a new trend, there's something happening. Even like your video content is every day is changing of what the client is looking for. So how do you stay on top of that? You know, back at university, we were told we are going to be marketing managers, and as you already spoke about, like, you know, having that overall marketing experience helps you understand how everything can work together. But also, it's sometimes it's a good thing and a bad thing to have that overarching marketing experience, because then you're not niching down, and it's that conversation of like, should I keep it broad or should it stay at niche? And like I've had that debate through my career and through the company, but we've definitely got to the point where we do have a broad understanding of how marketing works for a business. So all the elements that you'd need for it to work and how they can work together. And that's really important to know if you're going to run a business or if you're looking after clients. Unfortunately, as you'd like to be maybe niche in something, it's nice to know how everything works together so that the client feels that, okay, we're not just going to do this one thing and it stops there. So it is. So that's.
I'm only able to do what we do now on the video side. You know, we've obviously niched down and decided, and we're just going to focus on moving image stuff. But I'm 100% confident that we wouldn't be able to do it as well as we do it if it wasn't for spending 20 years doing generalist marketing jobs and knowing how everything works to some degree. Because in any business, whether you're talking about marketing a business or financing a business or operationally or whatever, whenever you're faced with a problem, you've got a load of different levers you can pull to try and fix it. Yeah. So the broader knowledge you have puts you in a better position to understand what the best fix is going to be.
And that goes back to, like, you asked, like, was this always going to be what I was going to do? And yes, it was, but I knew I needed to get out there and get that experience of, and that's when the eNet job was overall marketing job. I kind of felt like I'm going to get a taste of everything here, and eventually I will niche down. But it is very hard to niche down as an agency, but we've done that. And how we done that was very organically over the last few years, with just our clients having such a focus on content. And when they make this amazing content, it obviously needs to get out into the world, and that's through your social media, your emails, your web, whatever it may be. And that is a battle that we do still have, because we know what we're good at, we know what we like, we know what our clients want, but we still need to keep up to date if there is any big changes in anything. So it is about just keeping your eye on the ball and all them things, but specifically what you're doing. So it is.
Even to, I was just going to compliment as, like, even to manage, like, if you know a little bit of everything in marketing, because I see now, especially like bigger companies, you can have a email marketing specialist, an events specialist, a website, an SEO, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's great to have expertise in one topic. But for example, today, because I oversee a bit of everything, if I'm writing a brief for PR agents, it's good to have that knowledge as well if I'm managing an event. So I think, again, if you have a chance to work in something that gives you a little bit of exposure to everything, because at the end of the day, you can see, oh, you know what, I actually like more digital marketing side of things, or like the event side of things, or the writing, the PR. That's all good, but knowing a little bit of it all, I think it helps.
And I mean, there are lots of online sort of training resources out there for everybody who wants to try and stay on top of all the things. Are there any favorites that you have for both of you, or any that you've come across that you think are really valuable outside of the formal training environment? You know, something that you use regularly, or a website that you always go back to because, you know, you always pick up something from there, or newsletters you subscribe to. Are there any things like that you would advise people to keep an eye on?
Yes, I've joined, again, I love like webinars and some podcasts, and also I've seen a few from CIM that I think are quite good. And I'll probably mention the latest one. As a team, we did Copywriting, which was actually delivered by CIM.
Yeah, you told me about this last week. I mean, I can't get my head right. I mean, copywriting's hard enough when you're doing it in your first language, right?
Never mind, you're saying.
I can't get my head around how you can even contemplate that.
I know. So again, I mentioned about the copywriting. So that's something, it's challenging for a lot of people. But for me, again, English is not my first language. So it's a double thinking of like creating the content, being creative about, okay, what I'm going to come up with, and then in a different language. So, but I have to say, I got to a point now, you're going to laugh. I think my professional writing is better in English than in Portuguese.
You've probably done more of it, haven't you?
Yeah. Sometimes because we have, of course, customers and partners in Brazil, and I'm going to write to them. I'm polite, but sometimes I'm like, oh, I just want to finish with kind regards, and or with something like, like, how do I write that? So funny, but again, in general, I think creation of content, and again, back to the course, this copywriting was actually good to sort of like being objective and know what you want. So sometimes you can write like a paragraph about an event, and then like, okay, you have to try to catch people's attention in the very first sentence. What do you want with that? What's the main goal of that copy or that press release or that case study? So having very clear your points. And also I would say that was and I think some people have that more naturally as a talent. Some people don't, but something you can work and improve. So I would say the copywriting one.
Okay, what about you, Colleen?
Well, I obviously have to say, first of all, we're an online learning platform as well. So I would obviously say that we're trying to drive that.
Nothing wrong with the plug.
Nothing wrong with what we small plug there. But, and that's how our learning got on with COVID and how things changed, was that like our clients were asking us the same questions. So they were, and no matter what size the business were, what they were doing, generally the answer was, we started with the foundations and quite similar, and then obviously we tailored that down for them, and that's how we got into that online learning. And it's definitely with COVID now kind of obviously in our back mirror, we can still think that online learning is still the way to go, and that's where we're going to be driving our business to. For even large companies that have staff coming in, and looking to have that general market understanding or something quite niche, it is. So that would be my first protocol. But to say that to anybody that has very little experience doing the HubSpot and the Facebook ads course, they are all very good because they're the guys who we're using their platform. So if they're telling us there's an update or this is how you use it, definitely be listening to it. And for somebody that may not have that experience at the start, doing those courses and putting them on your LinkedIn and your CV bulks the CV out a wee bit, because as we all know, it's 2 or 3 things. It's your weekend job and maybe something else you've maybe kind of made up. It shows.
Kind of made up. I think everybody's got one.
Oh, the conference.
It's a conversation starter.
It's a conversation starter.
I recently put on my LinkedIn profile, that I used to be a postman.
I saw that, and I was wondering.
The amount of people that have seen that is unbelievable, and it's just like to go back to what you said earlier, something different.
And it doesn't have to be
people
big.
go.
And I was actually, I saw that, I was like, Peter never told me that.
I never tell you that, no. It was while I was a student. I worked as a postman in London.
Okay. Yeah. And that's something, I saw it probably a lot.
It's still my favourite job. I shouldn't have said this. Any of my previous employers, I did enjoy working for them too, but it still remains, even this job at Blue Sky, to be honest, postman is my favourite job. Yeah, definitely.
So it just goes back to there is so much learning out there, but maybe start with the big guys that are using the platform to bulk out the CV. And you know what? It actually, by doing that, you might actually trigger something in you that I really enjoy this, is really interesting. And then you can dig deeper and start looking for it. And then when you, as you say, when you go to your place of work, you could say, I'm really interested in whatever it may be, this topic. Can we look into that further down the line? So there is plenty of stuff out there, and if you've got the time, it shows that you're willing to learn and that you take your time to go out and learn. So if you're taking your time out to learn, then the employees, you said 100%. Your question earlier, why would the employer want to spend their money? Well, you've done it for free and you're willing to learn, so it adds that layer of actually this could be worthwhile our time as well.
Okay, we're coming into the final straight here now, so I want to move the conversation on slightly from the professional and technical skills that you need to do the job well to more of I hate the term, but the softer skills that you need, or the personal skills, if you like, that you think are most important. So Lizandra, if we start with you, in your work experience, what are the personal skills that you've seen that employers really, really value?
So being very honest, and even thinking, I think from the beginning to now, I think it's a capability to sort of see a problem and try to deal with it yourself, come up with a solution. Of course, sometimes you have to reach out to someone, but with the time I learned, okay, this is let's say something happened, this has to be resolved. And then someone else, if you ask someone else to help, they're going to come up with the same, okay, we have to resolve this. So I think the attitude of going, okay, I'll try to figure out this myself and come up with a solution. I think that makes such a difference. It's like the difference of you have to ask someone something and go and check and make sure that's done. And then you give someone something and you can just close your eyes, trust that that's going to get done. So I'd say like being able to get things done by like that self-start motivation. And like if you have a problem, try to deal with it. If you really struggle, okay, there's no way, of course, go to someone a bit more senior. But I would say having that, okay, there's something happened. What can I try to do first to address this? So I would say like try to come up with solutions and just to avoid that then more and more people get involved in the same situation, just you end up wasting people's time. So I would say, and again, taking up challenge, as I was saying, my first year, I was exposed to experience and new challenges and things that I wasn't used to do before. A first event, an international event, something I had never organized, but I worked to try to find the right customers to attend the event. I tried to strengthen my relationship with the local publications at the time. I was trying to get up to speed and have nice creative ads and things that would get more people to attend. So I had never done that before, so I think I was trying my best based on what I could do to make that engaged, make that interesting. And when I was there to set up, like, of course, a lot of things happened. I had, like, be there up early on a weekend to make sure everything was going well. But I was there. I was a placement, but I took up the responsibility. So I think that's something big as well. Don't think because you were like a placement or an intern or you're just starting, you don't have to have responsibility. Yeah. It's so good when you can trust someone that, like, even though they're just starting, know they're going to try to get that sorted. So.
And Colleen, what about you then? Yeah. What personal skills that you think employers value most?
Well, the first thing is having a good story, get your foot through the door. That's the first thing. And obviously something that's interesting being as a postman. But things that when you're in the job, and the things I've learned through my career, and especially being self-employed, is resilience. Is that you're going to have your good days, you're going to have your bad days, and you might have a bad week, but it is just saying that this is just a part of it, and you just got to ride the roller coaster. Yeah. And so
you can't be a 9 out of 10 every day. It's just not possible.
No, and there's so many people have came to me and said, like, I'm thinking of going out my own. What do you think? And the first thing I say to them is, like, are you okay with a couple of bad days, or are you okay with, if something happens or there's a problem, are you going to be able to pull yourself back up together? Yes, it's amazing to have a support network around you, which I do have, but it's up to you at the end of the day. So that resilience is key to what you're doing, and even just in any job that you're doing is just being okay with the setbacks and being okay with the criticism, and taking that and walking away with it and thinking about it and processing it, and maybe just take some time to yourself, but go back knowing that you've learned from that. And one of the things that we were talking about was, like, we've came so far in our career so far, but we didn't actually stop to think about how far we've came since this webinar was coming up, and we've looked back and went, God, there's been a lot of bad days and good days, and there's been a journey, so you actually don't realize how, those bad days actually shape you as a person until you kind of stop like this and just look over your shoulder. So definitely resilience, whether it's self-employment or not.
I think all those experiences do just add up to make you better at what you do, whatever it is you do, isn't it? I remember one of the early disasters, I told it on one of the webinar before, I think. One of the early disasters I had in my career was we were doing a trade show with a previous employer down in the RDS in Dublin, and we were staying overnight with friends in Dublin. And I left, it was paper inquiry forms for the exhibition. This was in 2001, 2002. And I left them in the back of my car and came out the following morning to go home, and the back window of the car had been smashed, and every single inquiry that we'd taken over 2 days of the show had been stolen out of the car, and I had to make the phone call to my boss on the Sunday afternoon and tell him, and I've never felt as sick in all my, I was convinced I was getting sacked, and his response was back to what you said, Lizandra. His response was, right, I'm going to put the phone down now because I'll probably say something I'll regret if I don't. So let's come in the morning. By then, tell me how we're going to figure this out.
Yeah,
and he just put it back on me to say, right, this has happened. What's the solution?
And what did you do?
We sent a we contacted the show organisers and explained to them what had happened. And it actually, I mean, this is the thing, it actually worked out in our favour. It was before GDPR regulations and all, thankfully. So we contacted the show organisers and explained to them what had happened and gave them the sob story and said, we're close enough to the show still that if you send us your list of everybody who attended, we can sit down with our sales guys and go, I think they were on the stand, I think they were on the stand. And we went through that list and we sent a mail shout out by post to everybody who'd attended the show. We actually ended up with more inquiries than we'd taken over the 3 days, because there was an element, I think, of people felt a little bit sorry for us. But also we managed to catch people who'd missed us at the show as well. So it actually turned out in our favour. So I went from thinking, I'm going to lose my job,
to something
to
good.
this turned, and I wouldn't want it to happen again, but it just shows you your initial reaction to how bad a situation is not very often.
And that's funny, that's what the learning is, you know, that's what the learning is at the end of the day, you know, getting into them situations and fixing it and knowing the next time a problem arises, you don't panic as much. You still panic, but not as much, and you'll stop and you'll think, right, how do we fix this? And then go to the people and say, well, this is how we're going to fix the problem.
And that's a conversation I was having with someone these days about, at the end of the day, we try our best to avoid mistakes. Doesn't matter which level, or it can be someone starting, someone at the senior level. At the very end of the day, you're just human beings. Mistakes happen. And I think, first of all, if you accept that and, okay, of course, try to not repeat that and improve. But
okay. Final question for you both, conscious of time. Thinking with the experience that you have now after the work experience you've had, plus the experience you have with your degree, can you tell us what additional modules or subject you think could be taught as part of a marketing qualification that would really help you do the job? If we start with you on that one, Colleen.
Yeah, so this one is very personal because I do believe the CAM degree is a brilliant foundation to marketing, and I actually knew it was good, but not until I had my first job and I was talking to the manager and I said the degree that I'd done, and she went, wow. That was her response, and that's when I knew actually I should start using this a bit more to my benefit. But in my experience, because that's the degree I done, leave the degree alone, because it is like a real good theory base and it gives you a real good understanding and knowledge of especially communications, because you'll definitely use that when you get into the world of work. But because other things like digital marketing and content creation, etc., change monthly and yearly, I would say leave the course alone, but add the classes for students to attend. Those classes can range from anything in digital marketing, and you can just adapt them each year, every month, or when things happen, because I think that having that foundation from that degree has been the thing that's been able to give me the confidence throughout every job in the self-employment world I have. On top of that, you know, adding classes on like content creation or project management. Or
project management's a massive one, I think.
Huge one, and you could even divide that up into different classes. And the thing,
because it goes back to when you saying about managing events and managing PR agency relationships. Very often, particularly in Northern Ireland, less so in other places, but particularly in Northern Ireland, we're a small business economy. Very often it's a one-person marketing team. So your job is effectively, as a project manager, you're managing internal projects, whether they be communications projects or website developments or whatever. But you're then managing agency relationships. So you'll have a website agency, an SEO agency, a content agency, a video agency, hopefully. And you have to manage all of those things too. But nobody ever teaches you project management.
That's something I was going to say. I think to me, it comes that managing. I think project management so many ways, because at the end of the day, budget management as well, it's really important. So that's something we really try to stick. Okay, if you have that, the best you can, because that's a big goal, to stick to your budget and then manage an event. There's so many things, and that's something people that don't organize events, sometimes they think, okay, it's a small event. They have no idea what goes behind that.
Absolutely none. And they assume the worst, because it will happen.
It's like a small, you could have a small stand, and then so many things in preparation to make sure that things are there, things happen, and then you have to manage that so well. So I think an event takes, some events, like we take a year or more to prepare because it's so complex, and then manage, like, for example, we just launched a new website now, and the amount of preparation for that, like everyone working together, developing content and organizing, make sure the pages, and because when you think all the different pages people are going to click, they have to be looking good, they have to be right, the clients or prospects visiting that, they have to find what they want to see. We can't have mistakes on page, and also having that project of like, okay, we're starting here, timeline to deliver that, all the actions, who is responsible, who is going to look after what. So it's a big project. And then, of course, when you manage agencies, because it's almost managing a separate team that works for you, but outside of your company. And then sometimes you have to speak, you can have your account manager, but sometimes you speak with different people. So being organized and have that, I think one thing very good, it's like having a proper timeline of what you want. And because sometimes when I started, I didn't think about dates. So I was working something and then someone was like, oh, when do you think this is going to be ready? And I'm like, well, I think 3 weeks. But then I realized I can't be thinking. You have to, okay, this is by the end of this month. This is by 2 weeks. This is by, and then comes together for the final deadline. So like, I think project management in general
and we even said, like, you know, you do spend your early career learning those skills. So you do. And if there was a chance to learn them at the university level, and if there were extra classes, you know, it also show what students are taking the extra classes, because they're taking their own time out. But, you know, not using the first year of your career to see what you like and what you don't like. You might get a taste for those things in these extra classes, and, you know, when you get into that world of work, that you're going to them saying, I have these skills.
The thing about it is project management skills make you so transferable. I mean, you can work anywhere. And because if you are the person that can organize shit, right, and get it done, you know, any business anywhere in the world will employ you.
The other thing just came to my mind, negotiation skills.
Yes.
So, for example, at the very usual, like planning for a year ahead or something, you speak with different publications, and then maybe you want to get a specific rate with a magazine or something, and to negotiate that, okay, I'm going to have these many ads for the year, or these both print and digital ads. How can I do to make them more effective? And because I had my degree economics, I've always liked numbers as well, and that helped me. But then that's something as well, marketing people, it's good to have that idea, good to have, because sometimes you can, if you know how to do that well, you can have good deals and you can actually add benefits. So sometimes you close a package and then you're like, no, actually, I have this add-on and this and that. So like negotiating and having a bit of those numbers there working for your favor.
Even on that, like, you know, marketing is obviously we're a wee bit biased because that's what we do, but like it's one of them things that just sort of gets into other parts of the business quite easily. You know, it goes into HR and it goes into that. So having them skills to like deal with people and communication skills and those organizational skills,
big time.
You know, that on top of knowing how to do your job as well is huge.
It's a big thing. I think everyone out there, you see working in marketing, you end up exposed to so many different people and engage with different departments as well. So
Okay, right. I'm conscious of time, ladies. Thank you very much for coming along. I enjoyed that chat. I hope everybody that watched did. As I said at the start, that's the final one of our series for 21-22. We're coming back in the autumn again for the next series. We're just at the stage of trying to finalise what the schedule is there and some of the topics we'll be covering. So thanks to everybody who's tuned in since last September when we started this. This is number 9, I think, since then. We've had some great guests. We've had plenty of people turn up, so it's great to have that level of interest, and we look forward to publishing the schedule over the next month or so. By the end of July, beginning of August, we should have that available. So thanks again, Colleen.